You ever have one of those mornings where your whole life flips upside down before you finish your first cup of coffee? Yeah, that was me standing barefoot in my kitchen staring down the barrel of a clipboard wielded like a weapon by Janice Larch, the newly elected HOA president and apparently self-appointed queen of Lilac Pond Estates. I swear she barged in like she was about to serve me with some holy decree, eyes shining with that particular brand of crazy you only see in people who genuinely enjoy meetings. And all I could do was freeze mug halfway to my lips, wishing I'd worn literally any pajamas but the ones with cartoon clouds and lightning bolts. As of this morning, Room 2B is under homeowner association jurisdiction. She declared like she was laying claim to the moon. Didn't even wait for me to respond, just whipped out a tape measure and started measuring the guest bedroom door like she was checking it for code violations. Meanwhile, I'm still processing, standing there thinking, am I awake? Is this real life, or did I fall asleep watching one of those dystopian HOA documentaries again? She must have seen my confusion because she turned with this thin smile and said, "You may retain the kitchen and bathroom, but the second and third bedrooms will now be considered community hosting zones." That's when it hit me. She was trying to annex my house. Like this was Game of Thrones for suburbanites. I'm Ronald Trawick, by the way. Semi-retired meteorologist, lifelong avoider of unnecessary drama, and up until recently proud owner of a peaceful 3-bedroom slice of heaven, emphasis on peaceful. Let me back up a sec. I moved here 2 years ago for the quiet. Sure, the lavender mailboxes made me question my life choices. And yes, the potluck dinners were non-negotiable, but I could deal. I mowed my lawn to HOA standards, kept my head down, never once complained about the holiday reindeer or the lady who insists on playing pan flute in her garden at sunrise. My home was my sanctuary, one room to sleep, one for my weather consulting gigs, one perfectly untouched guest room. Life was simple, until Janice showed up 3 months ago and turned this neighborhood into her personal improv stage. She called it Vision. Last month it was compulsory yoga at dawn in the cul-de-sac with Janice in full leotard and a headset mic. Month before that, shared compost bins. But this new thing, Project Room Share, was her crowning achievement. It started as a rumor Mrs. Chen next door mentioned it after a community visioning session I conveniently missed. The gist. Anyone with a spare room had to offer it as a guest suite for community use. Optional, she said, which in HOA speak means do it or else. Next morning I found a notice taped to my door. Comic Sans red ink, real official. You are hereby requested to open rooms 2A and 2B for community access. Non-compliance may result in penalties, including possible eviction under the Neighborhood Harmony Clause. I did the only logical thing, ignored it, and went on with my life. That lasted all of 3 days. Came home from Kroger, and there's Janice standing in my driveway with a folding cot, a lava lamp, and a guy who looked like he'd crawled out of a Burning Man documentary. "This is Stuart," she announced, beaming like a proud parent. "He's between homes but spiritually abundant. He'll be utilizing your community hosting zone starting immediately." I barely got out a word before Stuart strolled in, trailing incense and patchouli, and immediately started setting up shop in my guest room. "This is trespassing," I said, as calm as I could manage. Janice just handed me another sheet. Actually, under the new bylaws, failure to comply with community sharing initiatives is a breach of the Neighborhood Harmony Clause. Stuart is our first participant in the transitional housing program. I thought I'd wandered onto a hidden camera show. I tried calling the cops, but Janice had already filed paperwork with them declaring Stuart and future guests as authorized under HOA rules. The responding officer looked at the stack of printouts, shrugged, and suggested I call a lawyer. Even that backfired. My lawyer literally laughed, then quoted me $3,000 just to wade through the HOA's bylaws. Meanwhile, Stuart multiplied. First it was him. Then along came Bev, a self-proclaimed tarot reader and life coach, who took over my office, covered my weather maps in crystals, and claimed the high-pressure system over Nevada was the universe telling me to embrace change. She charged my neighbors $5 a pop for palm readings right out of my living room. Every move I made, Janice was 2 steps ahead. I changed the locks she'd already made copies. I tried to haul Stewart's lava lamp to the curb. Janice showed up with a camera crew filming me for unauthorized handling of transitional resident property. "That's another fine, Ronald," she chirped. "We're up to $2,400 now." At that point, reality had lost all meaning. Even my slippers weren't safe. Stewart borrowed them and raved about my shower pressure. I finally snapped and tried to evict them through the courts. That's when Janice reported me to the county for operating an unauthorized rental. County inspector named Tom shows up looking half asleep, gets offered homebrew kombucha by Stewart, gets his palm read by Bev, and just shakes his head at the circus my life has become. But Tom, bless him, was thorough. He dug deep, not just into me, but into Janice and the HOA. Turns out Janice had filed 17 complaints against neighbors that month alone, plus rezoning paperwork nobody approved. And wait for it, she'd applied for a federal grant listing my home as a community lodge for transitional housing. $75,000. My house on a federal grant application. That was the twist right there, the twist. Tom didn't waste time. Within 2 days, Lilac Pond Estates was crawling with county, state, and even some serious-looking federal folks. They dug into every scrap of HOA paperwork, talked to everyone, found out Janice had been applying for grants under 3 different names: Janessa Larchington, JM, Larch, Enterprises, you name it. Grant money for community improvement was spent on a hot tub, a trip to Cabo, and you can't make this up, a garage full of ceramic frogs. It got weirder. She'd installed tiny cameras in my smoke detectors to ensure community standards. That's not even the best part. Stewart was actually her nephew with a rap sheet for running a fake charity for orphaned dolphins, which, as a meteorologist, I can assure you is not a thing. Bev real name, Margaret, dodging business taxes by moving from town to town in her Mazda. Both of them met Janice in a Facebook group for entrepreneurial spirits and saw a golden ticket to free rent. HOA held an emergency meeting, 12 minutes unanimous vote. Even Janice voted herself out. I think she thought she was voting for pizza. State prosecutors saw enough for a fraud case, and privacy invasion offered Janice a deal: pled guilty, pay restitution, avoid jail or go to trial, and risk 15 years. She took the deal. Her punishment, $135,000 in fines and legal fees, had to sell her house to pay it off. Foreclosure auction was on a Tuesday. I went with $27 in my pocket and the tarot card Bev left behind, blessed for prosperity. I was the only bidder. I turned Janice's old master suite into my home theater, called it the Larch Pit, and invited the whole neighborhood over for a documentary about HOA overreach. Even let Stewart watch from the porch. But the cherry on top, at her sentencing, Janice stood up and declared she didn't recognize the authority of the court because she was a sovereign citizen of Lilac Pond Estates. Judge looked over his glasses and tacked another $5,000 on for contempt, while Janice's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. That was the moment it all felt worth it, seeing someone who thought the rules never applied finally get a taste of the real world. Now I've got my peace and quiet back, well, mostly except for the pan flute lady. But you tell me, where's the line between community and just plain insanity? Should HOAs have the power to run roughshod over people's lives? Or did Janice finally get what was coming? Drop your story in the comments. Ever fought back against an HOA or had a neighbor from hell? Let's hear your thoughts about justice, property rights, and whether the universe really does want us to embrace change or just lock our doors a little tighter next time.